Hello everybody, it's Gasmask Reader again with another one of my book reviews. This time I'm talking about another mystery novel that I read on my Kindle, Death Dives Deep by Michael Avallone. If you've actually watched my other reviews, you might recognize the name because this is the second book of his I've reviewed. This is the 21st book in his Ed Noon detective series. And I guess last month I would have done a review of the 20th book in the series. Now this one is another one of his spy detective series, I guess, or secret agent detective series, or whatever you want to call it, where Ed Noon, who is a New York private detective, gets a call on his special red, white, and blue telephone from the President of the United States and is given a case. In this particular instance, the case involves reading a manuscript. And the manuscript is kind of weird. It involves set in Florida. It involves a pair of scuba divers who run a business where they collect sponges and stuff. And one of them brings home a beautiful woman, and the pair of them set out to a secluded cove. And then when he comes back dead, with the girl missing, and his ship comes back in with his basically bloated, waterlogged corpse on it. And then his partner goes crazy, hops on the boat, sails out to the secluded cove, sees three beautiful swimming women who try and drown him. And then, after Ed Noon finishes reading the manuscript, suddenly a crazy guy and a teenage girl jump him, and then there's all kinds of other weird stuff popping up, involving the people who are in the manuscript are real people, and they start showing up and getting involved, and people get shot and punched in the face, and get knocked out with knockout gases, because it's a spy novel, so there's more spy stuff like that. And big conspiracy and all kinds of weird crap. It's fairly interesting, and I'll give you a little reading from the beginning of the books to get you a sense of what it sounds like, just like I usually do. The President of the United States called me on the phone exactly 1 hour before the fourth scheduled moonshot from Cape Kennedy. The two items are not related. One has nothing to do with the other. At least they didn't when he rang me up on the red, white, and blue hotline that sits on the office desk and makes everyone but Melissa Mercer think I'm colorblind. Mr. President had to talk tough to Red China. He'd just gotten back from a summit meeting in Hanoi. The world was holding its breath again. A thermonuclear end to all the troubles of the universe still seemed just around the corner. Nobody wanted it to come, which was why I was surprised to hear the President's voice dumping the Healy Southern affair into my lap. There's a package you'll be receiving sometime today from the Xerox people in New York. Ostensibly, it's an unfinished draft of a manuscript you had them reproduce for you. Roughly 60 pages or so. You understand? Check. When you've read the material, call me back. Will do. For a moment, his famous voice lost the cool, authoritative sound, and he chuckled. I assure you, I'm not interested in a prospective bestseller. It is imperative I know your thoughts on this particular matter. Nobody at this end has been able to make heads or tails of this particular piece of copy. I'm gambling on that curious intellect of yours, Ed. All the usual federal agencies are up against a stone wall. You flatter me as usual. Nonsense. The record speaks for itself. There was a pause. Call me as soon as you can. As always, this may be important enough to cost me my job. You know, the opening there was, as you noticed, very dialogue heavy, mostly because it's the setup. You know, he needs to set up what's going on, why Edmund is getting a mysterious document, who it's from, why it's important, and all that stuff. And despite that not really being really the best opening, the book itself is pretty good. I will say it's, you know, once it gets going, it's very fast paced. Even despite the fact that there are, you know, two separate flashbacks, I guess you want to call them. One where Ed is reading the manuscript, and the other where he encounters one of the people who are mentioned in the manuscript, who tells him some more of the backstory and what happened between the end of the manuscript and the meeting with Ed. There's also a lot of good action, which you would expect for this kind of thing. I mean, it's a spy novel starring a private investigator who is, you know, very much in the action-y mode of private investigators. I mean, you know, Ed's not a dummy, but he tends to get the crap beat out of him a lot and getting gunfights in every book. So there's definitely plenty of action and people getting shot. And actually, I don't think there's really as many fist fights as there are in the previous ones, which isn't surprising since by the time this book is going on, Ed is probably a little bit older than I am now, so he's not really in as good of shape anymore, and getting the stuffing beat out of him is a lot more likely than him beating somebody else up. You know, this book is set, as you might have guessed from the bit I read, in the early 70s. So it's, you know, very much Cold War era, which is one of the few things I don't really like about this. Is with a lot of Cold War era stuff, there's way too much obsession with all commies or evil business. Which, you know, now that the Cold War is long since over, is slightly on the boring side. That said, it doesn't really detract as much from this as it does from some of the Cold War era science fiction where it's set in the distant future and, you know, you still have the Soviets battling the Americans despite the fact that it's like 3000 AD on an alien planet or something stupid. But that's way off the track. This one isn't a science fiction novel, though. There are some weird, almost Fortean elements. I mean, the whole bad guy plot is somewhat reminiscent of the Bermuda Triangle, and it, you know, it gets mentioned in the plot itself a few times, but despite the fact that there's hints of they want to pretend to be a secret underwater civilization, they aren't really. It's more of a Scooby-Doo kind of thing. That said, overall, I still think this is a fairly good volume in the series. I don't really think the spy novels are quite as good as the very early ones where they're pure detective novels, but they're still fairly good. And I'll still definitely be reading the 22nd volume sometime next month. I'm going to planning on keep reading the series till I get to the end, which is, I think, something like volume 32 or something. But I enjoy it. It's fairly, you know, well done. Characters are as decent as you can expect for a novel of this. There's good pacing, an interesting story. You know, it's overall fairly well written. So I'll give it my usual rating for a book that I think is good, 4 Gasmasks. You should probably check it out, though I would definitely recommend reading the first 20 books first. So that would, unless you're a really quick reader, that will take a while if you haven't read them. And that's all I have to say about this book, but I will be back probably tomorrow with another book review, because I actually also have another book I just finished reading that I will have a review up of, hopefully tomorrow if I get a chance to do it. And more likely than not, another one the day after that, because I have a third book that I am just about finished with, because I have been slacking off over the weekend. But until I'm back with those reviews, you have fun, find yourself some good books to read, and read them. Bye.
If you like this video, please click subscribe or watch some of my older videos. If you think the book I reviewed sounds interesting, buy a copy. There are always links to the Amazon store in the description for this book and any other books I mentioned. If you have any suggestions on other books I could read, or any other comments, queries, insults, or anything else you want to say, please feel free to mention it in the comments section.